Hello, everyone. Welcome. Happy Sunday. My name is Katie Gideon, and I feel like my true millennial just showed with that song, but it's such great advice. If we just breathe, everything's going to be all right. And I do think that ties very much well into our October theme, but I am glad that you're here. I will be your on-camera facilitator for this monthly setup, and I want to give a huge shout out to my co-facilitator who you will see in the chat. It is Jeno. It's been a Team Texas weekend. So I do not currently live in Texas, but that's where I started out. So we will forever and always be Team Texas. But it's been one of those weekends. I feel like we hadn't had one of those weekends in a while. But you'll see her in the chat if you need anything. She is there. I already love seeing all of our returning socialers in the chat. You all are amazing. You're wonderful. It's why we show up and do what we do. I saw that we had some new folks in the chat. So, welcome. As always, you can participate in as much or as little of this social as you want. That includes the chat. So, if you are new, you can put that in the chat that it's new, you're here, it's your first one, or maybe your first one in a while. But you have absolute permission to get comfy, get cozy, get out your October journal. If you don't quite have your October journal yet, don't worry, you can take some notes. And then just double check that the chat is set to everyone. Hosts and panelists is the default, and that comes just to myself and Jen. And we are always happy to answer those questions there, but we know you're not here just to talk to us. You want to be a part of the amazing Sonder fam in the community that's here. So, as always, we want to remind you to be kind and courteous to yourself and others, no promotions or spam, respect everyone's privacy, no hate speech or bullying, limit repetitive product and accessory questions, though we do like to chat about our favorite pens, pencils, stickers, crayons, all those things, as well as some of the additional products that we use within Silk and Sonder. But you all also provide amazing recommendations when it comes to articles, books, apps, all the things. So we love it. We just always want to remind everyone that please do not let it detract from why we're here, which is to set up your monthly journals. And while Jen and I have some information, most of the individual account information that is going to have to go to customer care at hello@silkandsonder.com. And at the same time, if you just want to bubble some up concerns, just message Jen and I on the side wing, take that to HQ. But our team is quite responsive, so they should be able to help you in that capacity. And as always, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community. We know that's why you guys keep coming back. But you are responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So if September was not a good month, or if you have some hesitation coming into October, that is perfectly fine. If you need to set up some of those mental boundaries or barriers, please do so. We do not want this to be negatively triggering in any way, shape, or form. And that's how, like I said, you can participate in as much as little as you want. If I am too much, mute me. The music is too much, mute it. If the chat is too much, you can close it. And I know we said it was going kind of fast, so you can always click on an individual message above it, and then you can manually scroll through there. Because we know it's got a lot of moving pieces, a lot of moving parts. So take Michelle Branch's advice and just take a big deep breath. And we're going to be spending the next hour and 15 minutes together as we set up October. So, new month, new theme. And so I almost felt like we needed a little bit of a break from Bravery because that one was brutal. It makes me miss Enchantment so much. But I have appreciated the transition between all of them. Enchantment was a fun, fluffy kind of palate cleanser before we got into the rougher, tougher Bravery that honestly I am still trying to like wrap my head around with. I had a pretty tough week, as I mentioned at the previous social. So it's just one of those, it hit me in all the feels and hit me in all of the like just doubt. My self-confidence took certainly a little bit of a beating, and that's perfectly fine because I think the new theme of resilience is such a great transition from that. And that's just because there are going to be moments that even in your bravery, you're going to fall on your face, or you're going to fail, or you're not going to do well. Then resilience can step in. Sierra, I am sorry. I wrote those mind map questions and I even was mad at myself each day where I was like, what kind of torture am I wanting to put through? Because these are questions I don't even want to answer. So I feel you. I hear you. Luckily, someone else wrote this next batch of mind maps. But I think resilience is one of those that this is absolutely leaning into some of the celebratory as well as picking up some of the pieces or celebrating the fact that you're moving forward. So even in your brave moments, it's acknowledging the bravery regardless of the outcome. And so I came across these two just because I love our Sonder family and I always just feel a little much when everyone is kind of going through a pretty rough spot. So I kind of came across these two that I feel like just summed it up because you all are amazing, amazing humans. And I, like I said, I always feel bad when you all are having bad days, but I get it. And so one of the ones I liked is healing is recovery from a hardship that is over, but resilience is the ability to thrive when life is still difficult. And I know I feel like a lot of the sayings that a lot of us can relate to is that I want to start thriving instead of just surviving. So I think that really hits with the resilience component. And that is just being able to kind of maneuver even when things just aren't what they should be or they haven't been fixed. And I think it's that consistency to move forward. Same thing with the next one with persistence and resilience only come from having been given the chance to work through difficult problems. So the only reason we kind of have and know these feelings is because at some point we had to experience those. And so this is where I would appreciate, and certainly I'm going to take some time to do it, to just kind of acknowledge how you got here. Because we all have had our ups and downs and everything in between. That's what Jen and I were talking about, where it can just be really tough, but you have survived your darkest days, your lowest points. And I think it's kind of leaning into that. So that's why I think it's a really, really excellent transition from bravery because we kind of picked on ourselves a little bit. So now we should work on an opportunity to kind of build ourselves up a little bit more, gain some of that emotional trust and confidence again. And so another place to look for some inspiration is on page 2. May has introductory letter to the concept of resilience. And so the things that kind of stood out to me was how we rise each time. Resilience shouldn't necessarily be the consistent acknowledgement of failure and why you failed. It is the acknowledgement of getting up and moving on past the failures. And I know I am a negative person that dwells on the negativity or the things that I did wrong. I am a perfectionist. I always want the feedback. I want the lessons learned. I am not satisfied without one thing that went well, one thing that went wrong, and one thing that we're going to learn from. So I think it's just almost like altering that thought process of as much as I hate to ignore how we got here, we actually kind of pick that up and move forward with it. Doesn't matter how we got here. It is how are we mentally, emotionally, and physically moving forward. And so I think that's a very key distinction that sometimes even I miss the mark on. And then it's definitely tapping into the inner strength idea, which I know scares and certainly intimidates me because that hits a lot of the trust in yourself, the authenticity, the confidence, the self-esteem. It hits all of those things that are those squishy items that I definitely that's the very loud voice late at night that just is the inner critic. And so that can be really hard to kind of suppress sometimes and not ignore. So that is more of tapping into those. So I think it absolutely is still another one of those inward looking themes. And I am certainly appreciating all the stuff that you're putting in the chat. Please continue to do so because I feel like y'all are here for that. And so the agenda for this evening, we are going to be doing our monthly acrostic poem. We are going to have the privilege of looking back on September and then moving into the October intentions to see what we can take from those reflections or just leave them be. And then maybe then work on our mood tracker and habit tracker to kind of support that. So, for just a little bit of a opening activity, and I say little bit, it's 10 words, which is not little. We've had far littler words. I miss the days of the 4-letter words. But resilience, the acrostic poem, So if we move to a blank page in your journal or a blank spot, one of the examples I have, it's great. There's a little notes page on your very first page in your journal that has the little dash lines where the page numbers are, and that has more than 10 lines. So you can put your resilience there, and you're going to write them down on the left-hand side. And this can be specific words, it can be sentences, it can be sets of words. I have some really fun examples to utilize because you all got very creative and when you posted them in Silk and Sonder. So this is what your page or your part of page is going to look like with that resilience on the side. And then here are some examples. You have the kind of one-word ones on the left. You have some of the more poetic long-term prose in the middle. And then if resilience is a little bit tough to wrap around, we have some synonyms for them, as well as I have my thesaurus pigeons that make an appearance, and this time they got it in the right tense. So you have some other options there because I certainly like the idea of the give. I feel like that's one of those the kind of bending but not breaking, and I do think that also definitely resonates with me a little bit when talking the resilience, where it's like you're going to be tested, but I'm gonna figure out where my limits are and we're gonna make it work. And then I like the one on the left. That was one that I found. I think it came from kind of an early education poster. And I just thought it was really sweet. And they're really friendly reminders. And sometimes it's nice to just be a little bit kinder to ourselves, especially when we write these. Like I like to go deep and dark and in all the fields, but it's really nice to just be reminded to care about yourself and others in that kind of light, fluffy area. And then again, here are those amazing examples that each of you had. What I like about the one on the left is again, they have the words for resilience, but they have kind of placed them strategically within the word because they don't always have to start with the word. So I really enjoyed that. Here are a couple of great answers. And as I said, that notes section that I think is on the first page, as soon as you turn there, that can be a great place for that little resilience, especially. I have pretty chunky handwriting, so I know it wouldn't fit there. And then if acrostic poem is not your thing, here are some other recommendations. You can write a letter saying goodbye to September, hello to October. Maybe you're not even feeling the months because it's just the start of the burr months and they all start to run together. So maybe you want to say goodbye to summer and hello to fall. Or maybe you want to fill in the resilience definition, or just take some moments. You don't even have to write it down, just to kind of sit and reflect on some of those small moments that made you feel resilient. So I am going to give you some time to work on these. I would love to hear your acrostic poem or if you have other thoughts and feelings, but I would also love maybe just more thoughts kind of on the transition from bravery, or if this is your first month with us into the resilience. We will see you soon. Bye. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Apologies, I had to do a quick costume change because I spilled my drink down the front of my shirt. But thank you, everybody, for sharing. I appreciate seeing all of that. You guys are immensely inspirational, but I also love being able to kind of discuss the process because what I definitely do not consider myself a poet person, but I think it's the exploration, and I can definitely feel with someone who said they just didn't have, I think it was Lucy, didn't have the energy at the moment, and so had to ask a little bit of help, which I think is always great. But I feel like I have been in that idea before, where it's like I don't got it. I don't got the creative spirit. I don't got it. So I'm just gonna sit and kind of think about it and do something else. Which is again, we love these socials for that purpose. You don't have to do all of these exercises. You can kind of come here, be there for the chat and all those things, and work on it as you want, because there are no journal police. No one is going to show up and kind of see all those things and critique it. But it is always great to just kind of start and see what comes up, especially as you kind of navigate each of the themes. So thank you, everybody, for sharing. And even as I move through the rest of the social, please feel free to continue to provide your responses, even if we've moved past it, just because kind of this is your space to kind of put those thoughts and feelings out into the universe. I feel like there are some situations that, it's just nice to have kind of an independent third party just hanging out so you can just feel a little bit better that you don't keep it into yourself. So now we're going to move into those pages of the weekly setup of, or sorry, monthly setup of why we're here. And so we're going to start on page 8 with the September reflections. And this is an opportunity to look back at kind of what September brought. And what I think is really great about this is we do get to acknowledge some of those wins. If you've been with us before for those rose, bud, thorn exercises, this is similar to that on just a slightly larger scale. But the wins are definitely something that made you happy, made you smile. It was an accomplishment. The challenges are acknowledging something that didn't go right, something that was out of your control, stumbling block, frustration. And then the favorite moments, you can absolutely ask for some assistance on that. Look back at your phone. We certainly like to capture things that we enjoy. So that can be very entertaining there. And just because there are all those lines there does not mean you need to fill out every one of them. And I think, as I explained in one of my previous monthly setups, what I have started to notice the trend with this page, especially now that I've been doing it for a couple years, I have just noticed that my wins are always something that I did. I went somewhere, I accomplished something, whereas my challenges are more the like squishier, crunchier ideas of honestly where I kind of failed short, like mentally and emotionally. It was the kind of procrastination or some of the like, I added a little bit too much doubt to myself, or, it's just a little hard on myself. So I found that really interesting. So I feel like, again, if you keep kind of doing these with us and have been with us for a while, maybe start to see if you can find some of those trends. Because then what I appreciate on this page as well is that start, stop, and continue. So this is an opportunity to reflect on, again, maybe taking some of those wins that you want to continue doing, stop doing some of those things that could maybe impact those challenges, or even start embracing some more of any of those wins, the challenges, or the favorite moments. And so here are some great examples. I like the idea of it's not my style, but I like the idea of it is that asking yourself when you want to start, stop, and continue, but then provide the why you want to start, stop, and continue that. Add it a little bit more oomph, a little bit more power to it. And then you can also take it the next step further for the how component, because essentially you can do the start, stop, and continue for the reflection. You can pull the whys into your intentions page, which we're going to do next. And the how can then be used in the habit and activity tracker, either on the monthly scale or bring it into the weekly pages. So I think it's really great. Or again, maybe it is just the kind of top things you want to do. Maybe it's the one thing you want to do. So I do find this particular section into those actionable items, but I also enjoy the storytelling that the wins, the challenges, and the favorite moments bring. And then I saw Kimberly L in the chat. I think hers is that bottom one where it is not only taking that step forward with the start, stop, and continue and the how and the why component, but breaking it down into the specific weeks for that month, so that you can then break those down into each of the weekly setup pages so that you can carry on those kind of start, stop, and continue throughout the journal as you link that too. Uh, I appreciate the feedback. Really, it does look great. But again, it's also the opportunity to reflect. So maybe these were great ideas at the moment, and maybe you need to go back and revise and adjust. But that's also what's really nice about each month getting to do this again. So I'm going to give you some time to work on this, and we will see you soon because we love, again, celebrating those wins, acknowledging some of those challenges and looking forward to what we can start, stop, and continue as we reflect on September and move into October. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And I appreciate just the honesty and transparency with the fact that we can all come together and again acknowledge those highs, the wins, the things that made us smile, but also still staring at us on that same page, those challenges. And again, sometimes there are those months where they just seem so big and they certainly overpower it. But I still think there's always something special about being able to sit and kind of acknowledge and see all of those. So, while it can be a little bit of a tough exercise, I do think there is some honesty about it that I always appreciate the time that I get to sit and reflect on that because I don't think we always do that as much as we should. But then being able to kind of pull some of that motivation in the start, stop, and continue kind of picking ourselves up as we move into the next month. So thank you everybody for sharing. So now we're going to move over to page 9 in your October journal. So again, page 9. So we're going to work on those intentions. And this is where you get to start maybe being a little bit creative if that is what you need for your monthly setup. We have these set categories, but you can certainly make adjustments to them to fit whatever milestone you are in your life, whatever chapter you are in your life, or honestly, what you just need. Maybe you want to focus a little bit more on some of those other things and maybe a little less on the ones that are written. But you can always use the idea of resilience to set your intentions, maybe focusing on some of that self love, self talk. Bring in those wonderful helpers of songs, lyrics, quotes, all of those things, especially kind of moving into maybe some of the spooky season. So maybe find some inspiration there. And then even sometimes it's just asking yourself, how do you want to feel about this month in these particular areas? Or sometimes I feel like Bailey always puts it best. She kind of wants to go a little bit more on the simplistic side and put a sticker, a word, a sticky note, something wonderful like that. And if you need additional motivation, you can kind of lean into some of those other larger themes. World Mental Health Month, an acknowledgement there. And then I know I want to highlight the National Women's Small Business Month because I feel like we have quite a few small business owners amongst us. So maybe you want to take a little bit of break on that particular self-care journey and maybe focus a little bit on your small business when it comes to these type of categories. And again, maybe you had just a little bit of a mentally tough month last time. And so maybe you want to focus on mental health instead of physical health, maybe focusing on some of those key relationships. But what I have found valuable is if I define what those key relationships are. So each month I certainly pick a specific relationship, and it's usually, my relationship with my parents, my relationship with my sister, or even specific friend groups. I find that really important, or also acknowledging that maybe not everyone is in a professional goals season. So being able to change that to learning goal, creative goal, even the hobby goals. And I hate to say it, it is less than 100 days till Christmas. So maybe it's start working on those holiday goals. But you have the flexibility to kind of make those changes here. Here are definitely some amazing examples. I love the duality. This is the duality page. I am a big teeter-totter fan. I love the visual that it creates. And I feel like it's also that kind of give and take moment. So the one on the left, diving right into the fall feels with the let go and lean into. Same thing with maybe focusing on doing more of something and less of something in these different categories. And then, as always, for every action, we need a moment to rest and recover from said action. So looking at a movement and a rest component to it, that action item, and then that kind of rest refresh option. If you can't commit to those specific things, or you just, like I said, I had a rough week, so my attitude coming into October is not the attitude that I want to maintain through the month of October. So I have kind of been leaning into a little bit more of the sticky notes as I set this up, because like I said, I'm just being super stubborn with myself and I'm just not wanting to come to the party. So I do have some temporary things listed on sticky notes that I don't want to commit to just because I think I need to go and sit with myself and come back with a better attitude. So that's kind of where I'm at for sure in my setup. And then I do love these because one, just because there are 6 categories there does not mean you need to use all 6. Maybe you just want to focus on a few of them. The one on the left, diving right into the Halloween feels with the 4 different categories, or leaning into that larger idea of the theme. Our theme in July was independence. So it was focusing on these different aspects of independence that they wanted to do. And I think that could be a really good one for resilience as well. If you kind of want to work on, mental resilience, physical resilience, kind of all those things, or maybe you just want to ignore the theme altogether. And that is where the stickers and all the visual doodles come into play. So, as we say, pictures are worth 1,000 words. Stickers are just basically mini pictures. So, why not lean into that to kind of cover it? I think it's really great and inspirational. Or even leaning into some of the books or some of the cozy fall reads, cozy fall films, cozy fall TV shows. So, you can kind of use that for inspiration. And then I know Heather is in the chat. Hers is the one on the left. I've used that as an example before. And that was because the overall goal is to reduce stress. So broke down again into those different categories with some sort of mantra and affirmation and then the kind of the action item there. And then Kimberly was the original poster of the crystal balls, but someone came in and gave us another update. So I'm glad I didn't have to continue to steal yours, Kimberly. But the idea of turning it into a little bit of a manifestation or even a prophecy, I think is super fun leaning into that. The colors are great, and it is just something kind of as a way to cue in, and maybe you can kind of get inspiration from those individual words and then diving into that thought of instead of kind of seeing what it will do, it is manifesting and putting it out there to be it. So again, you guys continue to inspire each other as we go through these, and I love seeing it, and I love sharing it with all of you at the socials. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to give you some time to work on this, but I would certainly love to hear in the chat or read in the chat what you're focusing on. Do you repurpose some of these categories? Are you going to completely go to the drawing board? Or have you found kind of some trends and things that keep you going to help you keep you focused on this page? And we'll provide some tips and tricks in the next couple slides to how you can continue to come back and revisit this page throughout the month. So we'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. So, now that we have reflected on September and maybe came up with some of the start, stop, and things we want to continue as we move into October, we have set our October intentions and what we want to look at. Now we can include some of those tracking tools to help us support all of those. So, this is going to be on page 10 and 11 in your October journal. So, we're going to cover the mood tracker and then the habit tracker. So the mood tracker is honestly, this is one of the first things I solidly and consistently filled out when I first joined because there's so much can be found with the different data collection points. I have a science background, so I really enjoy data. So the fact that I can then track all of these things and you get to use your own definition or your own defining things. Because I also, after this, you get to pick six different emotions that you want to track. I've actually narrowed down that I really usually operate in two modes, and that's the hee hee and the not hee hee. So I've definitely gone and repurposed my mood tracker for a couple other things. But the general idea is that you can pick a couple different emotions, some negative, neutral, and some positive. Track those. You can focus on the specific theme of resilience. You can fill in every emotion that came up that day or whichever one is the strongest. And again, you can be as creative or as kind of specific as you want to be as you move through these ideas. And so Jen just provided the link to the mood tracker as well as in the blog on the Silk and Sonder app, so you can utilize this as the feelings wheel, as you'll hear us refer to it. I also like this version, I think a little bit more linear in this regard. So you can kind of pull from this one. But then Jen and I came across this one on Instagram, and I love it. One, the visual is killer. Two, I mean, it's inside out. They make me happy. But being able to kind of define these and kind of bring in that situation, I thought that was very, very interesting. So being able to correlate the two, because I was like, I get it. When you have two types of anger that come together, it becomes rage. When you have the two joys, it's ecstasy. And then you have the combinations of the joy, the sadness, the disgust, fear and anger in those different combinations. And I was like, oh, this is clever and it looks pretty. And again, sometimes it's nice to name it when you don't have to get so afraid of it. But don't worry, I will come back to it. I'm going to move forward, so we'll bring it back. But if you don't want to track your mood, maybe you want to repurpose it. And so that's where you can kind of include a bunch of different variables. So maybe you want to focus on specifically your panic attacks, or you want to focus on anxiety, or you want to overlay the emotions and the energy for that kind of causation component. But you can always include which ones you feel the strongest, the most, all of those things. I know we love a new graphic. Maybe you want to focus on physical care. Maybe it's a mood booster. Maybe you want to lean into some of the holidays or the seasonality of it, where it's like, I am feeling, the burr months, or I'm feeling still a little bit more summery. So you focus all those things there. Um, the one I want to highlight, as we talked about with the intentions page and having to kind of struggle to kind of remind myself to go back to the intentions page, the middle bottom one is an intentions tracker. So they literally copied the names of the six categories that they just covered and they put them onto their intentions tracker. And so they were able to revisit each of those intentions throughout the month. So I love this idea of helping future you help yourself, Hansel and Gretel style, with your breadcrumbs. So you can do it that way. I know Jen is a big reader, so she's utilized it for the book tracker, but being able to overlay again the mood tracker with the one on the top is the specific moods that they were having, but were they productive, not productive? Maybe you want to repurpose it for your business habits, leaning into that small business women's month. And so you repurpose it for that. And Leanne is one of our wonderful small business owners. And so she was able to kind of incorporate that. So as the things to kind of do it for that. And the same thing with it is still the inside out theme, the mood bubbles there. You can include that. Spending tracker, we usually always get asked about. I haven't seen too many examples. So if you have used it as a spending tracker, I would love to hear about it, feedback in the chat, if you want to share it with us. I like the one at the bottom left of just acknowledging whether it was a tough day or a great day. Because as we said, some of us negative folks that like to dwell on the negative days, maybe it's a good thing to kind of track in that capacity, because I actually did that one of the months and I realized that while my negative days were quite powerful and they stood out, I actually didn't have nearly as many as I thought. And that kind of just it made me feel better about the month at the end of the day. So I came in with a little bit better Attitude. Yes, I will go back to the slides once I go off camera. And then again, you can bring into some of those self-care trackers. So I am going to go back to the beginning of these slides, but yes, let me know if I need to go back to one, stay on one a little bit longer. Want y'all to get those screenshots. But I'm going to stop talking. I would love to hear what moods or are you repurposing this one, and we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Appreciate all the feedback on the music. I feel like if you're not chair dancing by the end of one of my socials, then, like I said, I hadn't done my job. So we still got a couple more mashups, I promise. But I appreciate hearing how, one, the inspiration that you provide for each other on the feedback of what kind of moods, all those things. Because I feel like even then, it's like, what word am I looking for? I definitely need to phone a friend a few times in those situations. But also seeing all of the repurposing ideas that you guys have, it's pretty amazing. So we are going to go back to now that last habit tracker, the last tracker. So this is on page 11 in your October journal. And this is one I always like to do. For me, these are the habits that I want to do every single day. And so I am a creature of habit. So for me, this is very boring and very straightforward. I have the same three things that I want to do every single day, and that is move, journal, and read. I feel like if you come to my socials before, you could probably present those three ideas to everybody. And then I like to incorporate maybe a couple other things. And really now I've added a fourth one, which is kind of an adventure list, bucket list component, because I've repurposed my expense tracker as my adventure list and bucket list. So I just track all of the fun things that I do where I get inspiration from. And so you can, again, lean into that theme, or you can pick a different theme. You can continue habits from the previous month, the previous year. Join me in the Creature of Habit Club. But we always, again, make that recommendation to find a balance. And I've really been trying to kind of lean in and celebrate the idea of don't let things take up more space in your mind than they need because your time is precious. So that is why I've been really kind of focusing on I will absolutely make time and accommodations so that I can do those now four things every day. But I just think that's the gentle reminder of, self-care is not selfish. It's figuring out a way to make it work and it's adaptable. If you need inspiration, I will come back to this because, again, it's always helpful. I've also had to lean a little bit more into the hydration category. I just need to reach more for the water instead of the caffeinated drinks, but it also starts with going to bed at an early time so that I'm not groggy in the morning and having to reach for those caffeinated drinks. But here are some great examples. The one on the left I really appreciate is one, the beautiful colors, but I think it's just the acknowledgement of just because we can make all of these plans with these pages, we still have to give ourselves some flexibility, give ourselves some grace because life is going to happen. And so the one on the left was they were obviously doing really great with their habits that they were tracking, but unfortunately, COVID got them. And so it's that acknowledgement of those expectations are not going to happen because the priorities shift. So it's always a gentle reminder there. And I think it's a great way to approach it. Same thing with the one on the right acknowledges that they do have vacation. I actually have vacation coming up in October, and I already know that the moving is absolutely going to happen because we're going to walk everywhere. But the reading and the journaling, maybe not as much, just because I want to be present and be around everybody else and being able to do that. So you can include that. What I also like about the one on the right is that you can come up with your own kind of range or categories as well as kind of numerical legend. And so I think it's always very creative. Is that a satisfaction score? Is that how many times you did it? Also acknowledging that sometimes the weekdays and the weekends are going to look a little bit different. Bringing in the fact that just because there are 7 lines does not mean you need to do 7 habits. And maybe you want to focus a little bit more on a routine. So break it up with the morning routine as the top ones, the evening and afternoon routine in the bottom, and then just making it as pretty and colorful and creative as you can. You guys have made some amazing mandalas out of these. It's amazing. The idea of, again, helping yourself kind of check in with your journal. The one on the left, I think, is a great, almost like Silk and Sonder style habit tracker because they have the daily things that they work on with Silk and Sonder, which include the daily rituals, the daily affirmation, daily reflection, but then going back and working on the gratitude log or those habit trackers, the mood trackers, or then checking in on those weekly pages or the intention pages. And then the one on the right is Bailey. She's one of our other facilitators. She is wonderful if you haven't met her. And she kind of helped herself. She came up with the larger categories of the habits that she wanted to do, and then she listed the different things within those categories that she wanted to do. So a future self would be happy that if she is looking for the physical care component, she's able to pick from that list that's already there. So I love a good helping current self helping our future selves. Yeah. Oh, menu is an excellent way to put it, Jen. Maybe you should be doing this. Maybe it's leaning into the theme of the one on the right is mine that I used. I'm currently taking a part-time MBA, and I was just kind of struggling with just kind of balancing that and all the other things I was doing. So you can use this to kind of focus on a very specific thing that you're working on. Like I said, for me, it was that particular course load because it was also just, I feel like I have so many email addresses. And so I just needed the gentle reminder to check all of my inboxes, which was starting to get a little overwhelming. So I broke it down, and it also was, I was tired of like waiting until the last minute to do it on my weekends. So I tried to structure and set aside time during the weekdays to do it. So I found it really helpful, especially if you have a very specific goal you're working on. So I think it's great. So I think it's perfectly awesome to kind of use it for that. And then you all know I love my iconography. And if you haven't curated your social media pages, I highly recommend it because now this time of the month, like end of the month, beginning of the month, all I get are bucket lists and reset ideas and adventure lists, and it makes me so happy to open my For You page recommendations, and these are what I get, and then I get to share them with you guys. So I love this. These are exactly what I look for when I am incorporating them into my adventure and bucket list on my expense page, because I feel like so much of these things that we're already doing, so why not give it a fancy title, put it on a little bit of a mini pedestal, and celebrate the things that you are accomplishing because I think it's so fun. I love these ideas. And same thing with different ways to remind yourself to fill your cup this fall, as well as other self-care goals. And like I said, they just make me happy. They look really pretty. And so I always love sharing with these. So I am going to give you some time to finish up on this, and we will see you soon. But I would love to hear what habits you're working on. Are you embracing? Because we have a bingo board that's listed in the journal, so you can certainly pull some of these ideas for the bingos. But would love to chat with that, and we'll see you soon for the closing. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And sometimes I feel like for these, I just never know how long I am going to talk. So being able to throw a bunch of random songs in there, I really appreciate. Thank you all. And so, if you can believe it or not, we have reached the end. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. As always, we would love to continue the conversation in the Silk and Sonder app. You all provide such amazing inspiration. And so it's wonderful to have all of those. So definitely, if you want to share your pages, we would love to see them. And as well as you're still needing some more inspiration, there's always a little bit of a post-social flurry of the different posts. We've also announced our October exclusive, which is Exploring Childhood Wounds. I know this sounds a little bit daunting, but our expert Sadaf is amazing and she will add such wonderful care to this. So there is a fee to this, but it's going to happen on October 23rd. Jen is including those links in the chat if you want to join us. We still have our AI 24/7 coaching, and we're always bringing out new features. And keep an eye on your inbox because I think we have some new announcements around it as well. And then I will include, this is a copy of it, but I'll include the link to Spotify for these different songs. It's the same kind of group that I feel like I always use. But I will include that link once I come off of here. But again, I appreciate every one of you all enjoying us. You guys are amazing. You certainly make my setups so much fun. But I am so looking forward to tackling October and resilience as we move into the Burr months and the final quarter of 2025. But I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day, an amazing rest of your week. We hope to see you at another event real soon, but we will see you again. Bye.